All right, guys, just a quick video for those of you that were absent for the review, or if you're stuck at home trying to do the review assignment and you need some extra help. So I'm just going to go through each problem, give you a quick little mini lesson, and help you solve it. I'm not going to put any timestamps or anything in the video. So if you look up at the top, the numbers will be listed. This is problem 1 out of 20. If you're looking for problem 5, fast forward till that says 5 out of 20. So the first question says to use the product rule to simplify the expression. Write the results using exponents. So right now I'm multiplying 2 times z 11th times -6 times z to the 7th times z to the 3rd. Everything's being multiplied, so I pick the parts that multiply together. 2 and -6, I can multiply those. And then z to the 11th, z to the 7th, z to the 3rd. All of those have a base of z. So those can be multiplied together. And when we multiply, remember that we actually add the exponents. So that becomes z to the 11 plus 7 is 18 plus 3 is 21. So -12z to the 21st power. And you're done. Problem number 2 wants you to simplify your answer. It gives you a little hint down here in the answer area that you can use positive exponents only. So it doesn't want any negatives. And there's a couple of different ways we can solve this. I'm going to solve it the way I like to do the problem, and that's to get rid of this -7 first of all. And if you remember, to get rid of negative exponents, we just move them up or we move them down. So that a to the -7 is on the bottom. So to change it to a to the +7, I move it to the top. That a to the 5th is still on the bottom. And now I need to simplify. I've got a multiplied 7 times on top, a multiplied 5 times on the bottom. So I've got more on top. These 5 on bottom are going to cancel out, and 5 of those are going to cancel out, and I'm going to be left over with a squared on top. And that's your final answer. Number 3 wants us to simplify. Again, it tells us to use positive exponents only. So our final answer can't have a negative in it. So step 1, a to the -4th raised to the 3rd power. Remember the rule that if I have an exponent that's being raised to another exponent, I need to multiply those two numbers together. So this becomes a raised to the -4 times 3, which is a to the -12th power. Now our reminder here was to use positive exponents only. We don't like a to the -12th, so to get rid of the -12, we just move it to the bottom. That becomes 1 over a to the +12th, and that'll be your final answer. Now your problems obviously are going to look a little bit different. Your numbers are going to be different, but these are examples that should look exactly like yours. So just do your best to take what you do in these problems and transfer that to the new one. Use the quotient rule for exponents. The quotient rule, remember, means when you're dividing exponents, you're subtracting. So in this case, I've got x to the 9th power on top, x to the 8th power on bottom. 8 of those are going to cancel out because when I have something on top and bottom, they cancel. And 8 of these are going to cancel, and I'm going to be left with just x to the 1st power, which is just x. And then my y's, I've got 4 y's being multiplied on top, 4 y's being multiplied on bottom. Those 4 cancel, those 4 cancel, and I'm left with nothing. Please don't put 0. You're left with 1. Remember that anything divided by itself equals 1. So y to the 4th over y to the 4th is actually 1, but we don't have to write the 1. So your final answer is x. It wants exponential notation, which we have. There's only a 1 exponent right there, but we don't have to use that because it's only a 1. All right, number 5, simplify the expression. So we have a fraction, and on the top of the fraction is a variable with a fractional exponent, and then on the outside of the parentheses is another exponent. So remember the trick about parentheses. Anything on the outside connected to it needs to be distributed to the inside. So this 4 needs to be distributed to the y on top, and it needs to be distributed to the 4 on the bottom. So let's do the top first. Y to the 1/4, and that's being raised to another 4th. And that rule is that we take the 1/4 and times it by 4. 1/4 times 4 is just 4/4, which is 1. So the top becomes y to the 1st power, and I'm not even going to put a 1 there. I'm just going to leave it y. And then the bottom, we have a 4, but we have to raise it to the 4th power. So we have 4 to the 4th power. You plug that into your calculator, and you should get, I believe, 128. 4 times 4 is 16, times 4 is 64, times 4 is 128. Yeah, so we're good. So this becomes y over 128. Put that in as your final answer. It wants us to use integers and positive exponents, which we have. So that's your final answer. If it ever gives you something like 4 to the 4th or 3 squared or 5 cubed, it probably wants you to expand that out. It doesn't want you to put 3 squared because we know what 3 squared is. 3 squared is 9. So if it's a nice exponent with a number like that, go ahead and actually do the multiplication, put it in the calculator, figure out what it's equal to. All right, number 6, write the expression in radical form. Radical form, remember, means that you should have a square root in your answer. And the way that we do this one, I'm going to rewrite it for us right down here. 49x raised to the 1/2 means that this 1/2 goes to everything on the inside. We distribute it to everything. So 49 to the 1/2 and x to the 1/2. Remember that to get rid of this fraction, we don't like fractional exponents. To get rid of them, I take the bottom number and I put it in my root. So that would become a 2, which just means square root of 49. And then that would be the square root of x. We don't know the square root of x, so we want that in our final answer. Square root of 49, we know that's 7. So I change it to 7, and I get 7 times the square root of x. Final answer. Number 7, write the following expression involving radicals in exponential form. So it wants us to get rid of the radical. It wants us to get rid of the square root and change it to an exponent, which is what we just did, but backwards. This is a cube root, and in order to change that to an exponent, I just put it on the bottom of the fraction. So this becomes x to the 5th over 3. So x to the 5/3 would be your final answer. That seems like too easy of a test question, but I guess everyone deserves a freebie. So no one should miss that one. X to the 5/3. Take the root, put it on the bottom of the fraction. Simplify the expression using the properties of exponents. Number 8. Remember, the property of exponents means if I'm multiplying these two together, I'm going to add the exponents. So I need to add 7/8 plus 1/2. I'm adding this exponent and this exponent. This becomes 7/8 plus 4/8 because we need a common denominator. Please don't add 7 and 1 and 8 and 2. This is high school math. By now, hopefully you remember that we need a common denominator. 7 plus 4 is 11/8. So our answer is x raised to the 11/8 power. I'm going to check this really quick. Simplify your answer. Type your answer in exponential form. So it wants an exponent, not a radical. So it wants 11/8. Use integers and everything else looks good. Number 9, write the polynomial in standard form. Remember, standard form means we start with the biggest exponent term first and go lower. So I have 7z to the 4th, negative 4z, and negative 4z squared. My biggest degree is right here, 7z to the 4th. So I'm going to write that one first. The next biggest degree is my minus 4z squared. I'm looking at the biggest variables here. And then the last one is minus 4z. So they go in descending order. fourth power, second power, first power. Then it wants us to name the polynomial based on its degrees. So we look at the largest degree in this polynomial is a 4. So that means this is a fourth degree polynomial. And it wants us to name it based on its number of terms. I have 1 term, 2 terms, 3 terms. So this is a trinomial. Try for 3 terms. Remember, if there were 2 terms, if this was 7z to the 4th minus 4z squared and that was all, it would be a binomial because it would only have 2 terms for bi. All right, number 10, the perimeter of the triangular park shown on the right is 16x minus 2. What is the length? Remember, perimeter means that we add all the sides together of an object. So when I take these 3 sides and add them together, I get 16x minus 2. I know this side and I know this side, but I don't know this one. That's what we're trying to figure out. So far, I know 2x plus 4. That's the bottom. And the right side, if I add it, is 5x minus 1. And then I have to add something else in order to equal 16x minus 2. So this is what we're looking for. Let's start by adding together what we can. 2x and 5x is 7x's. 4 minus 1 is a positive 3. So right now I'm at 7x, but I want to get to 16x, which means in this side right here, in this part, I need 9 more x's because 7x plus 9 is 16x. And I need to get from a positive 3, and I want to end up at negative 2. So to go from 3 to 2, I need to minus 5. So this side right here should be 9x minus 5. And I can double check. If I do 7x plus the 9x, now I'm at 16x. If I do 3 minus 5, I'm at negative 2, which is where I want to be. So that would be my missing side. That'd be your final answer. Number 11, 7x multiplied by 8 minus x. It wants us to simplify. So we're just distributing. We're taking this 7x and we're distributing it to everything on the inside. 7x times 8 is 56 x's. 7x times a negative x, please don't forget that sign right there, is negative 7x squared. Depending on what it tells you right here, this is an acceptable answer. It might want you to answer it in standard form. If it said standard form, it wants the squareds to come before the x to the first power. So you would rewrite it negative 7x squared plus 56x. But I think it'll accept either answer. Number 12, factor out the greatest common factor. And this is one of the harder topics that we had this first part of the year. We've got to factor out as much as we can. So the first thing I do is I look at the coefficients, 10, 20, and 15. The biggest number that goes into 10, 20, and 15 is 5. 5 goes into 10, 5 goes into 20, 5 goes into 15. Then I need to look at my x's. This one has 5 x's being multiplied. This one has 2 x's being multiplied. This one only has 1 x. So the greatest number of x's I can pull out is 1 because I can't take more than that away from this last term. So my greatest common factor is 5x, and now I need to factor it out. Or in other words, I'm doing distribution backwards. I'm taking 5 x's out of each of these terms. So I have to divide each of them by 5x. 10x to the 5th divided by 5x. 20x divided by 5x. 15x divided by 5x. So 10 divided by 5 is 2. X to the 5th divided by x leaves me with x to the 4th. And then 20 divided by 5 is 4. X squared divided by x leaves me with 1x. 15 divided by 5 is 3. X divided by x is 1. so I'm left with no x's. And my final answer is 5x times 2x to the fourth plus 4x plus 3. If you want to check your work, distribute and see if you get back to where we started. 5x, multiply it by each of these and make sure we get the beginning answer. So that would be 10x to the fifth plus 20x squared plus 15x, which is what we wanted to end up with. So that is the correct final answer. All right, 13, use FOIL to multiply. If you don't like using FOIL, you're more than welcome to use the box, the table method, but I like using FOIL. It's a term that hopefully you get really familiar with this year. So the first thing we do is multiply everything in this parenthesis by everything in this parenthesis. And FOIL help us remember how to do that. F stands for first. So I take the first of each of these and multiply them together. Y times y is y squared. O stands for outside. So I take the one on the outside and multiply it by the other one on the outside. So y multiplied by -6 is -6y. I stands for inside. So I multiply the inside numbers. 3 times y is a positive 3y. And L stands for last. So I take the last in this one and multiply it by the last in this one. 3 times -6 is -18. Be careful of that negative sign. Don't forget about it. Now I combine like terms. Y squared, nothing else has y squared. But I have -6y and I have 3 y's right here. So those combine together. -6 plus 3 is -3 y's. And then my -18 is the only constant, and my y squared was the only squared. Remember, when we're adding, they have to have the same variables to add. We can't add y squareds to y's. We can multiply them, but we can't add. All right, next one, number 14. Find the product using FOIL. 6x cubed plus 8 multiplied by 3x cubed minus 9. This one we'll do the table just since the last one we did FOIL, and we'll give everybody a chance to see it the way they like. So I've got 2 in this one and 2 in this one, so I have a 2 by 2 table. 6x cubed plus 8, that's a positive 8. 3x cubed and a -9. And now I multiply this first row by this first column. 3x cubed times 6x cubed. 3 times 6 is 18. X cubed times x cubed is x to the 6th power. It is not x to the 9th. When we multiply, we add the variables. We don't multiply them. Now I do 3x cubed times 8. 8 times 3 is 24x cubed. 6 times -9 is -54, and I have an x cubed as well. And then the last one is a positive 8 times a -9 is a -72. And I'm not quite done. Now that I know what everything multiplies to, I have to rewrite it and combine like terms. This box has my only variable to the 6th power, so that is all by itself, 18x to the 6th. This one has an x cubed, and so does this one. So I'm going to combine those. -54x cubed and a positive 24x cubed. If I add those together, I get -30x cubed. And then those are gone, and I'm left with a -72. Be careful to write it in standard form. Biggest variable to lowest variable. You're more likely to get it correct that way. 15, find the product, 8x plus 7 squared. There's 2 ways to do this. I'll show you both. One of them is the long way. 8x plus 7 times 8x plus 7. That's what squared means, is that there's 2 of them. And then I just do FOIL. First times first, 64x squared. First times, or outside, FOIL, outside, 8x times 7 is 56x. And then inside, 7 times 8 is another 56x. And 7 times 7 is 49. Now I combine like terms. 56x, 56x go together to 100 and, nope, not 102, 112 x's. And then I've got plus 49 on this side and 64x squared on that side. So 64x squared plus 112x plus 49. And that's your final answer. If you remember the shortcut, if it's something squared, you square the first number, 8x squared is 64x squared. You square the last number, 7 squared is 49. And in the middle, I have to multiply the first number, the last number, and then multiply those times 2. So 8 times 7 is 56, times 2 is 112x, which is the same answer I got down here. Either way, shortcut or long way, you get the same answer. Multiply using a special product formula. Again, we can do this the long way or we can do the shortcut. I'll do the long way first, then the shortcut. The long way is just to FOIL. We do first 8c times 8c is 64c squared. Outside 8c times 6. So I have to do 8 times 6, which is what? 48. But there's a C and a D. So I have to have 48CD. And then I do negative 6 times 8, which is a negative 48. But I have a D and a C again. So I need to make sure I put C and D. You could put the D first. I don't like to. I like to do my variables kind of alphabetically as well. So I put the C before the D, but it's multiplication, so it doesn't matter. And then we do last. Negative 6 times a positive 6 is a negative 36, and D times D is D squared. The positive 48 CDs and the negative 48 CDs cancel out. So all I'm left with is 64C squared minus 36D squared. And that's your final answer. If you recognize the shortcut, if you recognize that these are the same parentheses except for this has a minus and this has a plus, then you can remember, hopefully, to use the shortcut. The shortcut is square the first one, 8c squared, or 8c, all of that squared becomes 64c squared, and square the last one. 6d squared is 36d squared. And then we put a minus sign in between them. Either way, long way or shortcut, you get the same answer. Factor. Not as many of these on the test as I remembered there being. So this one starts you off with a nice, easy one. There's nothing in front of the n squared, so we don't have to worry about that. And 40 isn't a nice square root, so we can't really use any of our shortcuts. So we're just going to do this the normal way. I'm looking for numbers that multiply to equal 40 and add up to be 14. I guess negative 14. So let's look at factors of 40 really quick. I have 2 and 20. Oh, I've got 1 and 40. Don't forget about that one. How about 4 and 10 or 5 and 8? And I think that's as much as I'm going to get. Now, they multiply to be a positive, but when I add them together, I get a negative number, which means that both of my factors are negatives because they multiply to be a positive and they add up to be a negative. So which of these add up to negative 14? My negative 4 and my negative 10. Those add up to negative 14. And since there's nothing up here, I can just plug these right into my parentheses. N minus 4 and n minus 10. And I'm done. If I want to check my work, I will distribute. I'll FOIL. N times n is n squared. N times negative 10 is negative 10n. Negative 4 times n is negative 4n. Negative 4 times negative 10 is positive 40. Combine like terms, n squared minus 14n plus 40, which is what I wanted. So that is the correct answer. 18, factor the expression. Again, look for the shortcuts. 18 is not a nice square root, so it's not going to work. We're just going to have to do this the long way, but there's nothing up here in front of the x squared, thank goodness. So we can use just our normal standard method of factoring. I look for numbers that multiply to 18, negative 18, and add up to negative 3. So let's look at factors of 18. We have 9 and 2. We have 6 and 3. We have 1 and 18. And I think that's going to be it. Now we know that they multiply to be a negative, which means that only one of them can be a negative answer, a negative factor. But they add up to be a negative number. So that means that the negative is bigger than the positive, because when I put them together, I get a negative. So in this case, the 9's the negative, the 6 is the negative, and the 18's the negative. So I just need to add these together, figure out which one equals negative 3. Negative 9 times, or plus 2, sorry, is negative 7. Negative 6 plus 3 is negative 3. There we go. That's the one I'm looking for. Those add up to negative 3. And since there's nothing up here, I can just plug these right into my parentheses. X minus 6, x plus 3. And that's my final answer. That's factored form right there. If I want to double check, I can FOIL. X squared minus 6x plus 3x minus 18. These combine to negative 3x. And I get what I wanted to. X squared minus 3x minus 18. So I know that this is the correct answer. All right, 2 more problems. Number 19, factor the expression. First of all, look for shortcuts. 7 isn't a nice square root. 10 isn't a nice square root. So we're not going to use any of the shortcuts. We're going to have to just do this kind of the long way. And remember, because this 7 is in front of the y squared, I'm not looking for factors of 10. I have to multiply these together first. 10 times 7 is 70. So I'm looking for factors of 70 that add up to 37. So 70 is 70 times 1, 35 times 2, 7 times 10, 14 times 5. And I think that's probably enough. Do any of those add up to 37? 70 plus 1 is 71. 35 plus 2 is 37, which is what we wanted. So there's our exponents, or sorry, there's our factors. Excuse me. These are the factors that we're going to use. But because of this 7, I can't just plug these factors into the parenthesis. I have to plug them into the middle of the problem. I'm going to replace 37 with these 2 numbers. So I'm going to go 7y squared, and then I'm going to add 35y, and then I'm going to add 2y, and I'm going to add 10. And this is the extra couple steps. I break this in half. I focus on this side. I want to factor something out. So I look for the greatest common factor. The biggest number that goes into 7 and 35 is 7. And the biggest number that goes in, or the biggest y that goes into y squared and y is just 1y. So I'm going to factor that out. I'm going to pull it outside the parentheses. 7y squared divided by 7y. 7 by 7 is 1. Y squared divided by y is y. 35 divided by 7 is 5. And y divided by y is 1. So I don't put anything for the y's. Now this side, greatest common factor is a 2. That's the biggest number that goes into 2 and 10. And there's no y's with the 10, so I can't factor out a y. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. Y divided by no y's is just y. 10 divided by 2 is 5. I know I did it correct because my parentheses are the same. And that becomes one of my answers, y plus 5. My other answer is the leftover stuff, 7y plus 2. The leftover part in the first half and the leftover part in the second half goes inside the parentheses. And that would be my final answer. I can check my work by foiling. Y times 7y is 7y squared. Y times 2 is 2y. 5 times 7y is 35y. And 5 times 2 is 10. Combine like terms, 7y squared. 2 plus 35 is 37y plus 10, which is what I started with. So that means that that was correct. So this is my final answer, and we like it. Okay, last one, factor the expression. Notice that there's no r's in the middle. This is one of those special cases where there's an r squared and the last term, but there's nothing in the middle. So hopefully we can use one of our shortcuts. The square root of 36 is 6, and the square root of r squared is r. And then I look at the last term. The square root of 49 is 7. So because these were nice square roots, I can use that shortcut. And all I have to do is plug these into the parentheses. I'm going to put 6r plus 7 and 6r minus 7. So I take these two factors, or these two square roots, and the first parenthesis, I add them. The second parenthesis, I subtract them. And that should be your final answer. That's a good one to end on the test. Nice and easy. So we can FOIL and make sure 6 times 6 is 36 r squared. 6 times negative 7 is negative 48. Nope, negative 42r. 7 times 6 is a positive 42r. 7 times 7 is a negative 49. The negative and the positive 42 cancel out, so I'm left with 36r squared minus 49, which is what I wanted to end up with. So I know that this is correct. All right, good luck on the test. If you have any questions, come see me before or after school.